do you believe this renaming reflects a broader ideological or strategic shift within the Israeli government regarding the war on Gaza?
Well, in actuality, it does not reflect a certain shift, but it rather proves and asserts the existing ideological setting of the current Israeli government and the current governing body or governing elite within the state of Israel. A government dominated by the far right, especially the religious far right, and that is becoming more and more extreme. The renaming, the potential or the proposed renaming of the war to a war of resurrection, and using such doomsday analogy, basically apocalyptic terms, only describes what has been going on in Gaza for the past year. For over a year, or for exactly a year, Israel has conducted a systemic process of genocide in the Gaza Strip. According to official figures, 50,000 people are either dead or missing. Independent estimates by reputed independent academic bodies actually estimate that the death toll might be much higher, might be even more than 180,000. The displacement of the entirety of the Gaza Strip, the destruction of 80% of all of the infrastructure and the housing unit and the totality of the infrastructure, basically, of the Gaza Strip over the past year. This is a textbook campaign of genocide, and using such names or such terms or such acronyms for this war, such as a war of resurrection, something that might be synonymous to an Armageddon, and this sort of biblical, Quranic, apocalyptic terms actually does signify how radicalized the Israeli government has become, and how absolutist in their aims, and the zero-sum approach they have been taking towards resolving their security challenges in Gaza, unfortunately. So I do not think that it signals a shift. It rather stresses or asserts or proves that this government is actually engaging overtly in acts of genocide and extermination and ethnic cleansing and mass displacement, all crimes under international law.
Dr. Mohamed, the meeting where this proposal was made was reportedly tense, with accusations directed at Attorney General Gali Baharav Miara. How do internal Israeli political tension influence their approach to the war on Gaza?
The governing coalition in Israel does have its own divisions within it. There are divisions within the Likud party, divisions between the ultra-religious right and supposedly the regular right of Netanyahu. However, these divisions and disagreements are not detrimental to the functioning of the Israeli government. So today's disagreement or a reported exchange in the meeting between the Attorney General and some ministers in the Israeli cabinet do not really signify that there is a crisis in the Israeli government. This has been the case for the past year and even before that within this Israeli government. However, Netanyahu now is even standing on much more solid grounds than he was standing 1 year ago, ironically.
Dr. Mohamed, sorry to interrupt you, but do you read or have the sense that there is internal divisions in the Israeli government at this point?
No, I don't think so. I think these are regular disagreements. These are regular tensions between members of the government, which is expected in this, and it is something that is very reminiscent of Israeli governments of the past. However, there is no crisis or no severe division that actually threatens the collapse of the Israeli government. What I was about to say before you ask your question will actually complement the answer, that actually Netanyahu, after the onslaught and the war of aggression he launched on Lebanon a couple of weeks ago, along with the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah and the decimation of the leadership of Hezbollah, his government is actually now even stronger. Some members of the far right that were opposed to Netanyahu, like Gideon Saar, for example, has decided to join the government, which means that now the government has the support of 4 more seats in the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, which means that he is even in a more secure position. And other disenfranchised members of the Israeli right that used to be opposed to Netanyahu are now actually seeking reconciliation with the Israeli Prime Minister and might actually join him in the coalition. So these divisions, unfortunately, are by no means a signal of a severe division or an imminent collapse of the Israeli government. So
okay, sir, as we, of course, we're on a year has passed and we're moving on to the second year. Netanyahu had 4 objectives or goals, which are retrieving detainees, destroying Hamas, installing a new government not affiliated to the PLO or Hamas, return residents to the north, and he hasn't, unfortunately, accomplished any of his goals. How do you read this, sir?
Indeed, he utterly failed in accomplishing any of his announced 4 objectives. The hostages, most of them, over half of them, are still in Gaza, or the detainees rather, are still in Gaza in Hamas's custody. He managed to secure the release of some of them through a negotiated deal mediated by Qatar, Egypt, and the United States. However, instead of resuming the diplomatic route, he decided in November 2023, just 1 week after the temporary ceasefire or the truce, to go back into direct hostilities. So the result was he managed to return some of the detainees, about less than 10 of them, by force, but he actually managed to cause the death of over 50 of them with random airstrikes and indiscriminate bombings, which means that actually returning them is not a priority to Mr. Netanyahu's government, even though it is one of the announced war objectives. The second one, destroying Hamas. Of course, he did not destroy Hamas. You cannot destroy an idea. As long as the occupation lasts, there will be resistance. If we even imagine that he can liquidate Hamas, which is not even realistic or possible, there will be other resistance organizations that will resist Israeli illegal occupation of the Palestinian territories. So that he failed. Installing another new government not affiliated with Hamas or the Palestinian Authority, that too he failed in miserably, because the right thing to do is returning the Palestinian Authority, the legitimate sole representative of the Palestinian people, to the Gaza Strip, so that it can administer the Gaza Strip without any Israeli presence. However, he refuses that, because Mr. Netanyahu is opposed.
Dr. Mohamed, because we're running out of time in 10 seconds, could you please say a very important thing that should be said at this point today, especially when we're marking this anniversary on the 7th of October?
1 year from now is that we are much more pessimistic than we actually were, that the situation in Gaza has become disastrous. Gaza has become uninhabitable, and Netanyahu right now, as we speak, and his government are conducting a major military operation in northern Gaza and displacing the remaining people of northern Gaza, apparently with the goal of annexing, of depopulating northern Gaza and annexing it in pure colonial imperial fashion. So unfortunately, I do not see any happy endings so far, as long as the United States and the West is reluctant to exert substantial pressure on Israel to stop its genocide and its violations in the Palestinian territories. We will not see peace soon.